Hey, what's happening, audience? You're doing good. Welcome to the Savage Club. Letting it all loose today. Not everything, not all loose. Because, it's YouTube after all. Anyway, hope you're doing good. I want to talk a little bit about certain observations of consciousness, as I always like to observe, and in a way, making these videos, it is coming out to be some sort of like a building of a model. I was thinking about like what am I doing here with those videos? Um, and it is a type of almost like a video log, I suppose. Vlog of my thought patterns that are turning into some sort of consciousness model that is more up to date and more accurate of how reality really works. And like I said in the previous video, like your brain is the model of reality. The way your brain is structured is your model of reality. And so I also mentioned how there's many different types of cultures in the world that are defined by the arrangements in the soul, mind, and body. And that will determine in which group you kind of coalesce in. So that's why, people kind of, as they say, birds of the feather flock together, right? And so they automatically kind of everybody kind of sectioned into these cultural groups, which are literally each person within that group has a similar brain structure. It's the world, you see. And so we kind of have to respect that. And we have to respect the limitations of that also. And like I said in the previous video, the point of everything that is growing up, I suppose, as this conscious being, is about finding a way how to relate with everybody, no matter how crazy and unreasonable the reality is, and somehow coexist with that. And that harmonious coexistence with all these types of permutations puts you at the most peaceful place in this world. Functional but peaceful. You're doing your things, but everything seems like, water off the goose's fat, as they say, just runs off. And that is because you've learned to have an adequate relationship with everybody. There's a certain type of allowance of them be the way they are, and anything that was triggering you before alchemized, and there's a certain type of peace about it. And all that energy that you used to lose by being triggered by other people being sort of, whatever they may be. It might be like a empathetic view that like, why don't they see what they're doing to themselves and kind of thing, or angry kind of view where you're like, hey, why can't they see what they're doing to others? But either all of those have to be sort of alchemized and accept each single group as they are. And that's a paradox of it, is because like when you're no longer trying to change these groups, and you automatically take a certain type of cultural layer as well, because I mean, you can't not be, because you're part of it. You gotta have a cultural layer. But if that cultural layer is based on compassion and real power, then that somehow magically affects every other culture in the best possible way. That's the trick. And you cannot cheat in it. You cannot just intellectually understand it and then leave it at that. It's how your soul is arranged. And sometimes, like I may be watching some videos, and I'm also watching myself and my reaction, and there might be some sort of like fiery sensation coming online, like as a trigger, and I just watch it. I just let it burn. I don't avoid. I don't. It's good to just let it burn. And then whenever you look at that person and the way they express themselves, and when no longer it's kind of triggering you, and you're just like a meaningless pixels moving around, then you left that culture alone and you took your power back to you. Now you can actually use it to create something what you really want in your life. It's an art. It's an art of living. But in this video, I want to talk a little bit about I often talk about alchemy, and what do you do when you encounter that pain and pressure in this alchemical way. But also I want to raise the question, what would be the opposite of that? Because sometimes people, when they encounter that pain, they immediately start building up another tree of knowledge type of belief system, and they never get to the point of seeing that there is another way, completely opposite of how it was before. And by watching myself and other people, I've noticed something, and it seems as like it's a natural phenomenon. This is what, like, in the end, like, what fascinates me the most is that this idea that everything is just happening. Yes, there is this the only control that you really have is where you place your attention, your intention, and action, if you will. But your intention is also going to depend on where is your attention. So everything is where you place your attention. Everything starts from there. And if you place your attention between the 1 and a 0, as I always, I just basically, by saying, focusing between that thing that is you can find in your body as a negative, and everything as a space, and I'm asking you to make a focus that mind cannot do. Only the soul can make that focus, because it's in between focus. It's a non-binary it's non-binary focus, you see. And then you seem to be kind of moving to that space of peaceful, blissful. Again, it may not be like immediate. You may be kind of tuning a little bit, but it's just basically, you get to the point where you know that no matter what kind of pain you are experiencing, what kind of pressure you're experiencing, you can always find that point between your attention and awareness, where there is this brilliant space that sort of seems to like fix everything up for you. And the only thing you did is you moved your attention, and that is the only thing that you have a choice about, because that will determine what kind of intentions you have. You're going to even discover your soul desires before you may not even know what it is, and then that will determine the action. Not to say that there's no degree of freedom within intention. There appears to be preferences arising in the mind and in the body too, which are fine, but the quality is already selected for you by the soul. You see, this is why, like, well, I'm going to tell you something that may kind of free you from some of the ideas of mating, I suppose. I don't know why I said mating, but here it is. So check this out. You know, sometimes people say and talk about specific person, right? Like, and they sort of come home about specific person, and that if a person makes it about specific person, the guiding system is now not about your happiness, ideal life, you know, happy marriage or family or whatever you actually really want in your heart. It becomes about specific person, and specific person can never be the guidance post for your life. This is why you don't go by the person, you go by the quality of the feeling, and you only discover that through alchemy. Okay, and at the same time, when you let go of the attachment to the specificity in your mind, then it automatically turns into the connection in your heart, and that is feels like peaceful, blissful state of consciousness that is kind of with you, right? And then your consciousness is going to be creating based on the qualities that you have in your soul. Okay, and then in the mind there might be quite a few sort of like, you know, because mind is something that has its own kind of preferences, right? Soul will determine the quality. The soul says that if you've alchemized it, the soul will say this is the only quality that we're going to resonate with. But you know, exactly the specificity about a specific person is just going to arise kind of naturally, as long as it corresponds to the quality that you've created in your soul. Okay, and it's almost like you letting for the universe to pick your partner, because you're familiar with the resonance and how it feels like, and you basically want to resonate in the same types of feelings in the relationship with the person. That's how you know who that person is. Okay, now again, I don't want to go a little bit like too crazy about this, but it depends how crazy you want to go, and how crazy is, you know, that word crazy, not crazy, how fascinating the consciousness really is. We never really asked this question, you know, like anything that I see right now in physical reality, that's all that exists right now. Everything that you see right now, that's all that exists. The other side of the world or whatever, it's not there. You're gonna have to use your imagination to create of what you think that other thing is. You see, so that's why you're creating everything by thinking of how the other thing is. So that's not a really good habit to have. It does feel like if you let go of this idea that, like, oh my god, everything that is right now in front of me, and nothing else is, nothing else actually is existing at this moment. Everything that I'm holographically projecting in my reality right now is being experienced right now. That's all it is. So that habit of creating imaginary world on the other side, it's a type of hallucination, really. um, but and then, for example, what prevents you from imagining something that you want rather than you put something that from a past memory you think it is? Nothing prevents you. So to see, like, imagination doesn't really have limits intrinsically. Which means that, for example, even the person that you're about to meet does not exist. It does not exist. And by doing the alchemy, creating the quality of the person, by imagining whatever, daydreaming about what you want in life, that creates the form of the person. And then whenever somebody shows up in your life, then that becomes sort of a manifested, right? But that person did not exist until it came into your life. It was just your imagination and feelings. That's all it was. But it will come to you with the backstory. That person will have history, of course. But you see, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, how crazy do you want to get? Do you want to have this model of reality, which is more accurate, but it's not really, it's no longer that much relatable to. And also, you also have to have sufficient, like, this idea. This is sometimes is a problem. And if I say this idea to you, and if you're not alchemizing, if you're not going through the same thing as I am, you may take this idea as just an idea, as just a thought, as a concept that is not really attached from the quality of your soul and the core of your soul, and it's going to be floating as a concept, and then it's not going to serve you well. It's going to wreak havoc. It's going to make you sort of kind of cold and not warm, by saying that you literally create people in your reality. And so you sort of like ego may take over and say, like, oh, I create people in my reality, kind of thing, right? It's not warm type of thing, but there is this magic that there is if you actually gone to that conclusion through your own soul. And there's beauty there as well. It's not something that, like, oh, how to say it? One second. Burning some blood, dragon blood, incense. Okay, so I don't want to ramble about this too much, but you see what I'm trying to say. If you've discovered within yourself, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels beautiful. That that reality works like that. It feels fascinating. That you literally, from the seed to the germ to the flower to the fruit, happens within your consciousness. And then when you meet that person, they appears to have the same type of experience that they went through from their perspective. But it's like the backstory is created for you, and the backstory is created for that person about you. Reality is that you literally made that person, you created that person, and they created you. It's crazy, but it's awesome. And I think that's like the most. And by the way, you always do that. And if you have, for example, and if you have not done sort of alchemy and you went and looked for the partner based on the quality of your soul, you're going to find all sorts of karmic, as they call it, traumatic bonds and and lust-based relationships, you're going to find that that's what will happen. Depends on the arrangement of your soul. And only when you start alchemizing and changing the quality of your soul, there's going to be the quality of their soul change also. And even if it's just like one person that is like that in the entire planet, that's enough. Like you don't need more than that. You really don't, because if you go through this process as I'm describing, it's very obvious to you that the entire universe is within that person. There's nothing, there's nothing outside of it. This is why sometimes people call like there's time stops when two people meet that are based on the real true love, which appears to be does not come by default in this reality. It feels like you got to go through this metamorphosis from the caterpillar into the butterfly, and until you do, you're not going to meet that girl or that guy. It's just not gonna happen. You guys, no matter how many funky ass magic shit you do, no matter like whatever manifestations you do, it's just not going to happen. It's basically you're gonna meet the person that matches the quality of your soul. So why not go this way? And I'll tell you why sometimes people don't go this way. It's not that they're stubborn or whatever. It appears that it's also natural. So this caterpillar and the metaphor, the caterpillar and the butterfly analogy is quite fascinating, because what happens in that organism is that some cells initiate that transformation into the butterfly. They're the first ones. Okay? And now if the first ones who initiated that metamorphosis, if they in that moment would come in contact with the caterpillars would attack the butterfly cell. Okay? So the butterfly cells just have to have the boundary and keep on developing as it's developing. And as it's developing, then even the same cells that used to attack the butterfly cells, because now the butterfly is taking majority, and only as a last minute, now when there's a choice, are they going to be engulfed by the butterfly cells, or die or join or die? And so sometimes when there's no choice, then these caterpillar cells join the butterfly cells as a last resort. So this is why you have these two types of people, two types of souls. So, and it's like that. I've also observed this within myself and other people. And some souls, it takes sort of like one cycle of doing something to see that it leads to perpetuation of suffering. And then there's a realization that there's got to be a better way, and you look at it and do the alchemy thing, and then realize like, okay, that's the actual way how it's supposed to do. So there's this learning, but you do one, you fuck up once, you're always going to do that, because that's just how the reality works. But you don't have to fuck up more than once, but you do have to fuck up once. Why? Because otherwise it would not be your life. If you just like blindly listen to somebody who's been through that and say like, well, I'm not going to do that because, like the person is telling me, then it's like this, like you can go trial and error, which is like takes forever, or you can not do that and just completely blindly trust the wise person. Neither of them are right. The right thing to do is to listen to what the wise person is saying and say, okay, that's what they're saying. All right, so I'm going to go and check it out and test it. But when you do this with this awareness, it's like you testing the hypothesis, if you will, and you do it with that awareness, and you go and fuck it up with awareness, and you watch it happening. You don't need to fuck up more than once, because you, through your own experience, you saw the feedback, it led to the suffering, and that now that sorrow gives an opportunity. What you're going to do? Are you going to close off again, build another belief system, and gonna go in that caterpillar way, or you're gonna go the butterfly way. But because the wise person told you that there's another way, you're aware of it. You fucked it up once. You saw it like, yep, he was right, but not like I should have listened. No, you should have fucked it up once, and then you can do it. So you see what I'm trying to say? Like, that's the benefit of having somebody who's been through that. It's not that you have to like piggyback on that person. That's not okay. You have to. This is why I would, if I want to teach a child not to touch something hot when it's steaming, right? Because they don't have that. They may not have that awareness that, if you touch a steaming cup, that it will burn. I will let them touch it. It's controlled and safe. They will touch it. They will get burned. Get the feedback. Oh shit! I can't do it because that's what happens. Lesson learned. But it was controlled. But if I keep on preventing them, that child, from touching that cup, they would never get the feedback. And maybe they would just revolt against it and just go for that cup, perhaps, and make even more damage. So there's this right way of sort of like more of a controlled, I shouldn't say controlled, but safe. It's better to fuck it up safely and a small scale, get a feedback, than big scale and catastrophic, right? So of course, and that is what the good parent is. The good parent is not letting the person do anything in life, but is allowing to do it and try it, giving, of course, the education and the right path, but saying you got to experiment yourself. You got to see the feedback yourself, because otherwise it's all just going to be information, not the actual evolution. And that's what the good parent does. Okay. Now, then the question is, why some people, they don't take this view of well, actually, there's some people, they just blindly listen to the wise person, and they may live a good life, but they would always like a perpetual prince or princess, if you will. They will never become a queen or a king. Why? It's because they live by the principles. And living by the principles without exploring, discovering these principles yourself, you can never really evolve in your soul. It's just going to be all mental, you see. One second. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I was saying, you see, makes sense. And then other people who they do not listen, anybody, and so then they go through the trial and error, and so they have to keep on fucking. They keep on fucking it over and over and over and over again, when there's no more choice to do that. And so when it's almost like they're forced, now that there's no other option, then they start doing what they have to be doing, you see. And so neither of those two ways are kind of right way of playing this game. But it seems that this game must allow those two types of souls, I suppose. Is it actually just two types of souls? Anyway, must allow for that to exist. It's because it's almost like they must be allowed to exist for you to see who you are, and for you to find like the right way. They must be allowed to exist. But when you have this awareness that you can clearly see, man, it's very obvious. There are people who are self-correcting, who fuck it up, look at it. And by the way, these people don't have shame or guilt. They fuck it up. They look at it like, yep, that was fucked up. All right, then I'm not going to do that anymore. colloquially speaking, and they don't. But other people, they have shame and guilt. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to admit it. Like even if you stole something or whatever, or did something, when you're confronted with it, you got an opportunity to come clean. And some people just don't come clean, and some people do come clean because they're kind of interested more in the quality of their soul rather than that thing. And so there's that person who kind of look and self-evolve, and there's that person who would rather die than admit their darkness. And that creates this unnecessary sort of like suffering and pain. But by the way, they will also turn and be forced on the right path eventually, because that's just how evolution works. But you gotta let them be where they are, and you gotta let them do that thing, whatever the fuck they're doing, and that they don't learn. But yeah, you just gotta let them do that. So yeah, as you can see, the right way, you gotta go on a dark path once. Of course, you don't. It's not about like spiraling into it, which is what I describing this person as doing. Some people just spiral into it and just hit the rock bottom, and only then, when there's no other choice, then that happens. That the realization or the attention is placed on the right right way. Only then it happens. So that appears to be happening, and it actually very interestingly correspond to biological observations of the caterpillar to the butterfly metamorphosis. This is how I think that this kind of reflects in people too, and there are these types of souls, and it's okay. Like, you have to be kind of cool with that. We're all start with the caterpillar, but some of us push the boundary in the first ones to turn to the butterfly cells, and some of us are the last ones, and that's cool. Okay, this is why, like, wronging the caterpillar cells for not transforming doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything, doesn't change anything. It's just, you just gotta let that process be. And that acceptance of the way of things also happens naturally when you are, alchemizing and start seeing things, and realizations come in to see the world the way it is. And it appears it's about like creating and playing as a soul, but at the same time having a protection from the caterpillar influence, which then happens not to be the physical boundary, but or this iron throne boundary, which is a mental or the ego-based boundary, not to get hurt, but it becomes this that peace bliss becomes your boundary. Does that make sense? Because before, ego does not allow you to feel anything, but it doesn't get you hurt either. But now you get to feel everything, all the awesome stuff, but you don't get hurt as well. That's the protection, the ego protection, and then the real protection. I suppose, like, the protection, I don't want to make it religious, but basically the protection, this quantum. But the protection must happen. Okay? It's fascinating. This is why I'm super fascinated by the conscious evolution of conscious beings. I love that stuff. And it kind of eliminates all the noise too, you see. It communicates something very, very precise. And it's, like I said, it's the directional. It's like which way your energy is flowing, if your attention is going inside that thing or the outside of thing. If going outside of thing, you're still going into the dark path, no matter how nice it looks. You may be spiritual guru, but if there's a dependency on other people to be that what you do, that's still a dark path. But then when there's the direction in the right way, then it's the right way. And when your energy is flowing in this opposite of other people, if your energy is flowing the opposite way of other people, of course you can see the contrast and possible conflict. This is why the only way you can be protected and not to sort of create the friction between you and other people is if there's that background of everything, that peace, as people call the Holy Spirit, protecting you from the vampires. And so they can't touch you. They just electromagnetically, not just like that magnet. They cannot, because if they try to force that, it creates burning. And this is why, like in these movies, they show that holy water burns the energy. Not the energy, but the vampire, right? It's just to again, it's just like a dramatization of the mythology that is actually going on the energy level. This is why everything is sort of like energy and electromagnetism, if you will, metaphysics. That's what's really going on. It's just like interaction of energies and patterns of energies and all sorts of things, like just pure, I don't know, like the only way you can describe it with your mind is through physics and mathematics. But that thing is going on. And then there's colorfulness and in giving the form of it and making it into into the vampire who drinks blood, which is just a symbol for the energy, for the life force energy, right? And when the vampire bites another person, they turn into the vampire too, right? It's this basically like that backwards energy flow, which is about always taking to sustain that thing that is inside of you, because if you can't, then you're in a suffering. So you gotta keep on running and taking so you don't suffer. And then this way you just infect other people onto the same bandwagon. And that's why these movies are just to show what's really going on energy level. And sometimes I can see from my personal experience, some people may be kind of curious about this energy, and but they may not never actually. It doesn't seem like they've ever dealt with that. So then they don't have a frame of reference, right? So they treat it as like just like any other energy, and they they try to siphon your energy, and then and then if they And if they really connect with you, and if they kind of trying to do that, and you just kind of poof, face them with your full essence, it's not a pleasant experience for them at all. It's like that kid burned um, his fingers by touching the steamy cup, and so then they recognize it and they say, well, okay, that's just, I'm not gonna touch the steamy cup anymore. But to let them touch it a little bit, you know. And sometimes I watch these people. Anyway, like I can see it all happening, and I can anticipate what's about to happen, and then it happens, and then like flabbergasted, um, because they experience like a lot of emotional pain, and this is why they get like really confused of what the fuck just happened, because it didn't work. They couldn't dominate it, they couldn't deceive, they couldn't manipulate, and so they get like really weirded out, uh, and I don't know. Hopefully, put on the right type of path. But even with them, you have to have like a harmonious relationship, you know. Like it's there's this like almost like electromagnetic and energy type of respect. You know, hey, you do your thing. You know, you siphon the energy of other people. It's all good, no problems, no judgment. Um, but it's just you're gonna get burned if you do this with certain type of individuals. So just don't, and it's gonna be fine. But I'm not gonna, you know, prevent you from doing your vampire shit if you want to do it. You know, it's just don't tread on me. You know what I'm saying? And I leave you alone. And that's how you can coexist around them without being affected at all. Anyway, that would be enough for today, guys. It's getting darker. Um, yeah, that's the message. We all start off with as caterpillars. Some of us change at the beginning, and some of us change in the end. And some of us never do in this particular game. A lot of caterpillar cells, they just die out. And again, there's nothing you can do about it. It's natural. And in your experience, you may not even see that happening. It would be just like you may not even remember. You see what I'm trying to say? They just kind of go away from your reality. Anyway, the message of this video is that it's a natural process that's taking place. This metamorphosis thing that's taking place, and from your perspective, like sometimes people talk like, well, you go into the certain version of Earth. So when you're alchemizing, yeah, you do go into certain version of Earth. So everybody's in that version of Earth changes as you keep evolving and changing. You see? It's just so you just kind of hang out in this video game matrix, doing your stuff, untouched by anything that's going on, but you don't try to fix it and change anything. You allow it, everything that's going on, and you know that that's going to be the best possible evolution for everybody in there also. And this obviously justifies why you don't intervene. You know, because at certain point you realize that your intervention is not really helping anybody. And I also have to say something that some people when they get very enthusiastic about speaking the truth and whatnot, right? But they're doing it without going through the chemical process. They don't have protection. This is why some people get assassinated, because they've pushed the truth beyond of the version of their soul that they had. This is why they get whacked. You cannot fake this stuff. You're gonna get in a form of conflict unless you're harmonized in your soul. Make sense? That's my explanation of why there were these assassinations recently that they seemed kind of very pointless and nonsensical, but it's because you got to go through it internally, to earn that right to safely speak your mind, and not sort of like be against anything. You see? There's a certain type of pace that you have to allow for the evolution to take place without forcing, and it will happen. But if you're forcing it, you are entering this type of conflict scenario. So you cannot force it. You have to allow at this specific, perfect pace of gradually changing. And that's the sweet spot. Don't worry about it. It is happening. It is changing. And you got to be totally okay with it, with changing it at the pace that has a capacity to change. You see? You cannot force this shit. And if you have this type of attitude, then you're not going to be any kind of even against anybody, even if you talk your mind about it, right? Because one way to talk your mind about it and not be sort of detected as a foreign body is to be profitable to the system. Now, I don't know if I've ever, for example, I don't know if it's for me, but I'm just saying that if you want to be popular and talk whatever you want and whenever you want, you would need to make money for the system. Then if you make bank, babble whatever the fuck you want. The system will treat you as an entertainment that is profitable for it. And so as long as the Jews make the money, you can talk whatever the fuck you want about the Jews. You see? But if they can't make any money out of you, or if you talk trash talking about or whatever, then this is going to be very difficult for you. So that's one way. But if you don't want to play this game at all, and if you don't want to be profitable for the system, then you probably not you have to be okay of not being popular and having your niche audience. About whatever you talk. And that is, to me, in a way, more awesome than having like a popular attention. Because it's not, you see, like there's a value in what kind of attention, or rather connection that you have. The quality of the connection. You can have very few people that you're connected, and that brings you so much value in your life, that somebody else who has millions of subscribers and have no sense of connection, it doesn't have any kind of value. It's just a number on the screen. because these are NPCs. They're, you know, they don't have the spark. They don't have the juice. Oh, I said the juice again. What's with the juice? You see, this is where the Hitler and I are different. I like the Jews. They drink, not the people. Well, to be exactly, I don't have anything against about any type of people. But I also recognize that what kind of games certain people are playing. And, you know, to me, it doesn't matter how fucked up these games are. As long as this reality permits that to happen, let it happen. Let that evolution to take place. And let them be the last people who change. But they will. It's just the way it is. And so peace, you know what I'm saying? You see how it all works? There's this neutral freaking space. You can be like that Switzerland. It's just like, you know? Oh. And that's pretty much the model of reality that I choose to live. And nobody is sort of forced to live this model of reality. And if you live the life right, your brain is always evolving, which means the model of reality kind of always changing. Now, you get to the point where a certain axis of reality becomes permanent and never changing, and then other things are always changing, which are usually, you know what other things are like skills, that you're always learning something, you're always expressing yourself in a different ways. So there's always some sort of evolution going on. You see, as long as there's creation, as long as there's playfulness, there's going to be perpetual change. Anyway, that's enough for today. I'll see you next one. Bye.